Hey everyone, and welcome to the next level. This is another installment in my Bad Habits video series, where I address and offer remedy for some of the more common bad habits many of us improvisers have. Today, I would like to talk about a very important concept, perhaps one of the most important concepts for the vast majority of improvisers out there, and that is the concept of play versus rest. Play versus rest, sound versus silence. Those are the fundamental building blocks of the fabric of music. It's very obvious, but it's not commonly understood that way. When we think music, we usually think sound. We don't usually think the space in between the sound. And yet, if you think about it, it is the space between the sound that defines the boundaries of each note, of each phrase. Without the space surrounding the sound would have no meaning. A good analogy would be a physical object. For instance, take this cup, right? This is a physical object. But the only reason you're able to see it, where it starts, where it ends, is because there is space around it. It's almost impossible to imagine what it would look like if there was no space around it. Because if there was no space around it, how would you know where it is and what it means and where it starts and where it ends? It might come across as a silly example, but the reality is that music itself is literally indistinguishable from this. It is the space around the sounds that gives meaning to the sounds. It is the space between the notes that gives the notes boundaries, that sets up expectation for more notes to come, that separates ideas, and as such, this space needs to be taken very, very seriously if we are hoping to craft anything worth listening to. So I would like to offer a quick series of exercises in this video to develop a healthy relationship of play versus rest, of sound versus silence. The first thing to do is to listen to one of your recent recordings. Go find a recording of yourself from, say, a week ago or a month ago. Listen to it and be brutally honest with yourself about whether you think there's a healthy balance of play versus rest in your playing. Be brutally honest with yourself about whether you think you use resting optimally to frame your ideas. About whether you think you leave enough space between your phrases, especially in the earlier stages of your solo, where you're just beginning to build your solo. If you're like most people, chances are you do a lot more playing than resting, and chances are you do not use resting strategically to contextualize your actual playing. I know I've struggled with this for years and years, and I'm still working on it. So here are a few quick exercises. First, just play with the concept of play-rest in mind. As in, stay mindful while you play the exercise of the balance of play and rest in your playing. It should probably sound something like this. Another thing you can do, which I found really helpful, is developing permutations of play versus rest. So say, let's take 4 bars in a tune. Try playing on the first bar and resting on the other 3, like this. Now, try playing on the second bar and resting on the first, third, and fourth bars, like this. Play on the third bar and rest on the other three, like this. And so on and so forth. Now you can do the same in groupings of two, like play on the first two bars and rest on the other two. Or rest on the first bar, play on the second and third, and rest on the fourth. And so on and so forth. This is one of the most important concepts in your improvising, as it sets the stage for all the other things you're practicing and trying to implement into your playing. No matter how hip your lines are, no matter how cool your chord substitutions are, if you're not leaving sufficient space in your playing, none of those hip things will hit the listener hard enough if they are not strategically framed with sufficient amount of space around them. As in many of my other videos, I hope you're starting to notice the concept of mutually complementary opposites. If the soup is too salty, add water. If the soup is too watery, add salt. If you're playing too much, leave some space. The space will sound refreshing for the listener and command their attention. If you're leaving a lot of space, play something. The space had built the anticipation for the listener, and the listener is now waiting for you to say something, and he will listen so much harder to what you're about to play because you built the anticipation with the space for the notes to come in. That's it, you guys. I hope this was helpful. Please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more of these kind of videos coming. And as always, let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, comments, or requests, and I will address them in future videos. Peace.